Welcome everyone to this channel where I will be sharing episode reviews of that 1960s television show that I enjoy so much, Lost in Space. I encourage you to like and subscribe so that you don't miss each new installment as I work my way through all 83 episodes of this wonderful series. Up next, Season 1, Episode 26, All That Glitters. Penny has an encounter with a fugitive from justice. He gives her something to hold, what he describes as the key to the greatest treasure in all the galaxy. Animated by his greed as usual, Smith pursues that treasure and discovers that it comes with a terrible price. All That Glitters is an episode lifted directly from the King Midas story. I tend to enjoy very much Lost in Space episodes predicated on a moral theme, and this is a great one, largely centered around Smith and Penny. It is, however, rife with some logical problems, but more on that later. First, on to our story. John, Don, Will, and the robot are off on an expedition in the Chariot to search for a source of water, leaving Maureen, Smith, Judy, and Penny at the Jupiter. Marveling at the pleasant evening, Smith considers sleeping outside. Maureen cautions him to stay within the perimeter of the force field, but Smith can't imagine any danger on such a beautiful evening. Just then, though, we see a fugitive in tattered clothes hiding behind a boulder, as well as an officer and two animals out searching for him. The next morning, Smith and Penny are gathering berries, though it seems Smith is eating more than he is gathering. Smith then turns to discover the fugitive hiding down behind a bush. Without any explanation, Smith tells Penny to prepare to run. The fugitive begins to emerge, and in typical Smith fashion, he grabs her and essentially uses Penny as a human shield. In a very weak voice, the man calls out, "Help me," before falling lifeless to the ground. Contrary to Smith's protestations, the always tender-hearted Penny kneels down and stirs the motionless figure to see if she can help. He slowly lifts his head and then suddenly grabs Penny by the wrist. Smith, in a panic, runs off for help. In a threatening tone, the fugitive demands to know if Penny has seen an alien with two animals, and she says no. Penny asks him to let her go, promising that she won't run. The fugitive does, saying that he simply doesn't have the strength to hold her any longer. Meanwhile, Smith is running into the Jupiter campsite calling for help. Maureen and Judy are already armed with their laser pistols, and they all go running off to save Penny. But when they get there, neither Penny nor the fugitive can be found. Suddenly, the two animals appear. Maureen draws her laser and fires, but the animals, unharmed, continue to approach, so they all run back to the Jupiter. From inside the ship, they turn the force field on and it seems to hold the animals. Smith says that at least now they're safe, but Judy makes the obvious statement that Penny is still out there. Just then, to everyone's surprise, Penny emerges from the lower deck saying that she's fine. She goes on to say that the alien let her go and she brought him back to the ship with her. To his great dismay, Penny says that the alien, Ohan, is resting in Smith's cabin. Maureen sits with Penny and tries to better understand the situation. Penny says that Ohan was so tired she hasn't learned very much herself, other than he had escaped from prison and is being hunted. Smith raises alarm over the situation. Maureen, however, sees that the two animals are no longer there and says she will determine what to do about Ohan later. But as Smith sees it,
as far as I am concerned, madam, that decision is already made. Since the other male members of this family are absent, I am in command. The safety of all of you is my responsibility. Ohan, or Ohunk, or whatever his name is, goes.
We next see Penny and Ohan emerge from the lower deck. Smith greets him rather rudely. Ohan, however, recognizes that he has already put the family in enough danger and says that he must leave and continue to run from the law. Maureen and Penny suggest that maybe he should serve his time and make a new start, but Ohan explains more fully who he is, and as always, that comes along with a few smiles as Smith reacts to it all.
You do not understand. I'm a professional thief. In my world, that's a time-honored profession. My father and his father and his father before him were all thieves. The Ohan reputation is respected throughout the whole galaxy.
Yes, I'm sure it is.
I detect a note of cynicism.
As he leaves, Penny expresses some admiration for Ohan and hopes that he's not caught. The next morning, over breakfast, Smith is assigning tasks for everyone, but becomes dismayed when Maureen does some assigning herself for Smith. Just then, the family hears a growl as they see the two animals return, now accompanied by an officer. He introduces himself as Security Officer Bollocks from the planet, yes, you guessed it, Toron. Bollocks says that introductions are not necessary as he already has files on everyone in the party, and Smith in particular. He demands to know about Ohan. Maureen expresses their willingness to cooperate, but she recoils at being bullied. Bollocks, however, says he prefers his own methods. Maureen concedes that Ohan was at the ship, but Penny says he left last night. Bollocks asks Maureen if she knew Ohan was a fugitive from justice, and she says yes. He then quite reasonably says that they knew, therefore, that they broke the law by aiding and abetting a criminal. With that, Bollocks demands to search the Jupiter. Maureen agrees as long as he leaves his two animals outside. Inside the ship, Bollocks is conducting his search. In response to Maureen and Judy's questions, he reveals that Ohan's escape from prison was a prearranged plan, that he stole something of great value, and Bollocks hopes that Ohan might lead him to it. While Bollocks is conducting his search inside the ship, outside, Penny confides in Smith that Ohan gave her something to keep for him. A disc that he said he would come back for, but that Penny could keep it if he didn't return. He told her that it was the key to the greatest treasure in the whole galaxy. Of course, this makes Smith's eyes widen with anticipation. Just then, the disc begins to glow. In classic form, Smith tells Penny not to say a word about this to anyone, that this must be their little secret. Bollocks, Maureen, and Judy step out of the Jupiter, and Bollocks says that until Ohan is apprehended, he will remain in the area. Smith, hiding the disc behind his back, expresses that he's always happy to see a representative of the law, and with that, Bollocks and his two animals depart. Everyone returns to their assigned chores. Smith in the garden stares at the disc and wonders what it does. Suddenly, he hears a voice, asking if he wishes information. Smith asks about the treasure, and the voice says that a treasure as valuable as this comes with a priceless warning.
Can you tell me?
Many others have wanted this answer. They were men of greed. All paid a grievous price. All met with misfortune.
Never mind that. Where is the treasure?
Before I answer, think. Will you settle for untold wealth over all things?
Yes. Oh, yes. Tell me.
Dr. Smith?
Just then, Penny steps out of the ship and startles Smith. He tells her that he was just on the verge of discovering the secret of the disc and how it will lead them to the treasure. Smith beckons the voice again, and it once more tries to express caution, but Smith will have none of it. In his usual impatient manner, he demands to know about the treasure. The voice tells him to grasp the disc in his hand and take a step. Smith feels the disc grow warmer. He says it's like the childhood game which he incorrectly calls hot potato, which it's not. Of course, the childhood game is hot and cold. Nonetheless, the disc continues to grow warmer with each step closer to the treasure. Arriving at a pile of stones, the disc becomes so hot that it burns Smith's hand, and he tosses it to the ground. Smith sees something buried among the pile of stones. He reaches in and pulls out a small jeweled box. He is already imagining the riches when Penny says maybe he ought to open the box first. Opening it, they discover the box contains only a metal ring. At first, Smith is angry, certain that he has been cheated. He figures that the ring must do something, but has no idea what. That evening, alone and outside of the Jupiter, Smith is tinkering with the ring. He talks to it and even tries wearing it on his wrist, but nothing. Then Smith is startled by Ohan, who runs towards him. He says that he left something with Penny and he wants it back. Smith lets it slip that he knows about the disc, and Ohan becomes decidedly aggressive. Smith says that he can't get the disc now, as Penny must be asleep, and he wouldn't know where to find it. Ohan agrees to come back tomorrow night at the same time and warns Smith that he'd better have his property. Ohan runs off, and Smith returns his attention to the ring, which he had been hiding from Ohan behind his back. He's startled to find that the ring has a clasp and opens. With that, he places it around his neck and decides to conceal it there until he can learn more. It's at this moment that Maureen steps out of the Jupiter, and the two talk for a bit about the lovely weather and how it feels like springtime back on Earth. Then, Smith picks a flower that had been growing right near the ship, and they both marvel at its fragrance. Maureen steps back inside the Jupiter, and Smith, now alone, takes another sniff of the flower. He finds that it has lost its fragrance and tosses it to the ground. In that moment, the flower is transformed. Smith examines it and discovers that it has turned into platinum. The disc is now glowing around his neck, and with that, he proclaims that he has discovered the secret of the metal ring. The next morning, the women are working at some equipment when Smith steps up and greets them in an overwhelmingly happy mood. Penny says she knows why he's so happy and lets it slip that he must have discovered the secret of the metal ring. Smith is initially alarmed that their secret is out, but Penny says that she might as well tell everything. That Ohan gave her a disc that was supposed to lead to some great treasure, at which point Smith jumps in to say that all they found was a metal ring without any value. Since the ring belongs to Ohan, Maureen says Smith should retrieve it. He says he will head back to the ship for it, however, recognizing the value of what he has in the ring, and knowing that he needs to eliminate Ohan so that he may keep it, he goes instead to Officer Bollocks's camp. He offers Bollocks the opportunity to apprehend Ohan, telling him that he will be at the Jupiter campsite that evening. Smith recommends that Bollocks come armed, as Ohan might be dangerous. As he steps away, there's an interesting little exchange between Bollocks and Smith.
Oh, by the way, Dr. Smith, did you know that there was a reward out for Ohan's capture?
The idea never occurred to me. However, if a reward has been offered, I should like the funds turned over to charity. I will be more than paid with the knowledge that justice has prevailed. Good day, sir.
That evening, Bollocks and Smith have laid their trap for Ohan. Smith is growing nervous, but when Ohan arrives, Bollocks essentially forces Smith out to meet him. Right away, armed with a club, Ohan senses that something is wrong. Smith tries to stall by making small talk, but Ohan realizes he's being set up. He approaches Smith, at which point Bollocks jumps out with his laser. Ohan throws his club at Bollocks and then turns his anger towards Smith. Happily, Bollocks's two animals grab Ohan and take him into custody. Bollocks says farewell to Smith, who now knows that the ring is his to keep.
The greatest treasure in the galaxy. And now it's mine. All mine.
The next morning, Judy and Penny are marveling at the platinum flower that Smith had tossed on the ground the prior evening. He overhears them as he comes out of the ship and introduces himself.
Judy, I picked it. May I introduce myself, ladies? Dr. Zachary Smith, the man with the platinum touch. Observe.
Smith begins to show off some of that platinum touch, but Maureen is clear. She prefers her dishes the way they are. She then asks the question, doesn't that ring belong to Ohan? To which Smith simply says that he doesn't believe he will be returning for it. Smith proceeds to turn his eating utensils into platinum, but then is alarmed to discover that his food, and then even his drink, also turned to platinum. When he tries to remove the ring, it seems that the catch is no longer there. The ring has become completely solid. He works himself into an hysterical fit trying to remove the ring but simply cannot. Leave it to Penny to then express what everyone is already thinking.
If you can't get the ring off, Dr. Smith, you won't be able to eat. And if you can't eat...
I'll die.
Later, everyone is ready to turn in for the night except for Smith, who Maureen has locked out of the Jupiter for the safety of all. This is a circumstance that weighs heavily on the always compassionate Penny, and she speaks to Smith through the radio. Smith is thoroughly despondent over his situation. As he describes it,
For a doomed man, there is no hope, only darkness and despair. I am alone, shunned by all.
We'd like to let you come in.
finally he announces his decision.
Some way to help you.
I won't be here tomorrow.
What?
For the safety of all of you, I have decided to go out of your lives forever. Like a wounded creature, I shall go off into the wilderness to die.
Oh, now that's nonsense. You're to stay right here.
My mind is made up. Farewell, dear friends. Think of me sometimes. Farewell.
Oh, don't go, Dr. Smith!
The next morning, Penny and Judy are out where Smith had been sitting, everything he touched already having been turned to platinum. Just then, Officer Bollocks arrives, admiring all of the platinum items. He starts questioning the girls with a tone that suggests he knows what has happened and now demands to know the whereabouts of the ring. Maureen says that Smith has it, and Bollocks demands to know why she never told him that they had the ring. Penny says that no one else knew about the ring, that Ohan gave her a disc to hold, and she and Smith used it to find the ring together. Bollocks starts accusing everyone, suggesting that they were trying to keep the ring now that they knew of its value. He demands to know where Smith is, and the family tells him that he left because everything he touches turns to platinum, such that he's not even able to eat, and he left because he was a danger to all. Bollocks is not accepting their story and places them all under arrest, and plans to take them to his headquarters. With that, Penny dashes off and makes an escape. Bollocks and his animal stay with Maureen and Judy and begins to take them away. Penny, searching for Smith, discovers vegetation that has been turned to platinum, confirming that Smith has passed this way. She follows the trail until she discovers a despondent Dr. Smith sitting on a boulder that has, of course, turned to platinum. She comes running towards him, but we see Smith, in a panicked state, warn her to stay back. Penny pleads with Smith to come back with her to tell Bollocks that her family is innocent, but Smith, deep in his own despair, refuses to go. Penny lunges towards Smith, and with that touch, turns to platinum.
Oh, no. No! Penny, what have I done to you? Oh, no.
Thoroughly heartbroken over what has happened to Penny, we see Smith running off in tears. We next see Bollocks and one of his animals taking Maureen and Judy away, just as Judy sees Smith. He approaches Bollocks and demands that the women be released at once, but Bollocks says that Smith is in no position to give orders, that he's under arrest. Then, in a rare act of honesty, Smith tells Bollocks that he and he alone knew about the ring. Smith continues to demand that Maureen and Judy be released, otherwise he will turn Bollocks into platinum. Bollocks doesn't take the threat very seriously. Then Smith demonstrates by picking up an ordinary stone, which then immediately becomes platinum. Bollocks is astonished. Smith once more threatens him, holding up his finger in anticipation of touching Bollocks, and with that, Bollocks and the animal run off. Turning to Maureen and Judy, Smith says that he hasn't the courage to tell them what has happened to Penny as he runs off alone back to her. Here, a truly repentant Smith asks for forgiveness.
Oh, Penny, forgive me for what I've done. Forgive me.
He then sits on a platinum boulder and asks the question,
Oh, death, where is thy sting?
With that, the voice once more can be heard. It challenges Smith on what he has given up in exchange for a cold and unfeeling medal. Once again, in a rare exhibit of true remorse, Smith says he understands, but it is he that should be punished, not Penny.
I know I deserve to be punished, but not Penny. The child is innocent. She shouldn't have to suffer because of my folly.
You should have thought of that earlier.
I know. And now it's too late. What a miserable wretch I am.
Perhaps you have learned a lesson, Dr. Smith?
Oh, I have.
Then for once I will make an exception. I will spare you.
Unaware that the ring has gone out, Smith grows alarmed, thinking that the voice has left without returning Penny to normal. Now in great despair, Smith drops back down on his platinum boulder and weeps when, to his great surprise, a familiar hand is placed on his shoulder.
I'm fine, Dr. Smith.
Yes, dear. Penny, you're alive. Oh, thank heavens.
I'm perfectly fine.
Oh, my dear child, I've learned my lesson.
Maureen and Judy finally catch up to Penny and the now overjoyed Smith. They're happy to hear that Smith plans to turn over a new leaf. However sincere the new Smith is, though, we get a quick reminder that the old Smith is never far away.
Someone might as well have it. And it might as well be me.
Our next scene sets up our next episode. As always, I will withhold my thoughts until my review of that episode, The Lost Civilization. So a few more thoughts on All That Glitters. And I'll start by saying I love this one. It is much more about character development and relationships than it is about monsters and explosions. This episode features Penny, and it's hard not to be enchanted by the tenderness that essentially defines her character. In many ways, this late Season 1 episode parallels the final episode of Season 2, The Galaxy Gift, both of which were penned by the same writer. While Galaxy Gift is a fun episode, All That Glitters is definitely the better of the two. Among other things, it comes with what may be one of the sweetest and most tender conclusions of the entire series. Something born out of Smith and his moment of redemption. More on that in a moment, but first, let's consider this episode's problems. While they might seem to be many, they can all largely be summed up as just one. Of course, All That Glitters is a retelling of the King Midas story. And that's okay, as I like how it transforms into a very good, moral-based episode of Lost in Space. As is always the case with the King Midas story, though, it falls apart pretty quickly from a logic standpoint. Of course, it never really makes sense how some things touched by Smith turn to platinum, while others, like his clothes, do not. Or why his breakfast sausage would turn to platinum when it is touched not by Smith, but by the fork he was holding. This plays out dozens of times throughout the episode in a completely inconsistent and illogical manner, in a way that's so obvious it's not worth my detailing each one. Again, this isn't a criticism of the writers. It all traces back to the original King Midas story, which itself suffers from the same logical flaws. Once we give this a pass, which we should, There really aren't other meaningful negatives to call out across the entire rest of the episode. I will say that Bollux' behavior seems confusing at times. They let Ohan out of prison so that he would lead them to the ring. But then Bollux seems, and indeed says, that his only interest is in apprehending Ohan. But I thought the objective was to find the ring. Likewise, towards the end, we see Bollux inspecting Smith's camping gear, with everything having already been turned to platinum. As he does, it seems he already knows about the ring and what it can do. Then he seems completely surprised when Smith shows him that he can turn a stone into platinum. I suppose there are ways to rationalize all of these things away, but as is nearly always the case, these minor issues could have all been addressed quite easily with just a few small tweaks to the script, and it's a shame that that never happened. As I have in the past, though, I will call out the writer's affinity for the planet Toron. We first met the Torons during The Sky is Falling, though the aliens did not speak audibly, so it remains unclear how John came to understand them to be from the planet Toron. That planet or its people will be referenced in at least 6 episodes across the series, All That Glitters being only the 4th, as Officer Bollux indicates his office is located there. Once more, Toron seems to be a real happening place. So with that, let me transition to this episode's positives, which are very many, and I'll start with this week's guest stars. First, there's Werner Klemperer as Officer Bollux. His list of credits is long and varied, but of course, he is mostly known for portraying Colonel Klink on Hogan's Heroes. Though Bollux is a more serious character, it's hard not to see Colonel Klink come out repeatedly in Klemperer's Bollux. Nonetheless, Bollux is credible while exerting his authority to search the ship and do whatever else he deems necessary to get his man. Then we have Larry Ward as Ohan. Ward had very many roles in TV series, most often in westerns. I think he did a good job with Ohan. As much as he was somewhat likable while introducing himself to the family inside the Jupiter, he was also a threatening and dangerous character. Indeed, he seems more dangerous and threatening than most aliens the Robinsons will come to meet. You really get a sense of that danger right away when Smith and Penny first come upon him. It's especially alarming as he grabs Penny by the wrist. Thinking back on all alien encounters across 3 seasons, it's extremely rare that one of the Robinsons is physically restrained by a creature. Here, we have that happening to young Penny, of all people, snatched early in the episode before we even understand who Ohan is or why he's there. Much has been written about how the network suits were always on Irwin to ensure that the children would not be put into any alarming danger by some monster. When Ohan grabs Penny, it is very alarming and exciting. We can consider this a hint of what other drama and excitement there could have been if only the network would have allowed more latitude to the creative talent. Next, we have the regular cast. There are only a few episodes across the entire series when we get to see Maureen in a leadership role. All That Glitters is among the earliest, and she comes across much better in this one than most of the others. She's fairly strong here as we see her run out to save Penny, shoot the animals with her laser, and stand up for herself and the family to Bollux. And we can only wish that we would see so much more of this come out across the series. Then there's Penny, and as always, Angela is wonderful in her role. The ever-compassionate Penny shows us some genuine humanity as well as some wisdom for such a young person, such as when, about the treasure, she asks,
But what are we going to do with them?
We will not stay on this wretched planet forever.
Likewise, when the very grounded Penny declares,
Dr. Smith, maybe we should forget about being rich. I'm happy just like I am.
Well, I am...
Lastly, I always get a few smiles when the always trusting Penny describes the nature of Ohan.
I have plenty of everything.
Ohan isn't a hobo. He's a fugitive from justice.
Now I've heard everything. This cannot be true. A criminal is sleeping in my bed wearing my clothes. He'll probably murder us all.
Oh, Dr. Smith, you always exaggerate so. Ohan isn't that kind of a criminal. He's, well, I guess you'd call him sort of, An international galactic burglar.
Oh, this is too much, I feel.
Now, as much as All That Glitters can feel like a Penny episode, and it is, as is so often the case, it is Smith who repeatedly steals the show. First, there's the comedy, and I love Smith as a comedic character. Jonathan had a wonderful sense of timing, his facial expressions and reactions are fantastic, he truly is a terrific comedic actor, and as one, he tends to strike me just right. I always laugh out loud over the scene when Bollocks asks, "Who's in charge?" and Smith then examines Bollocks's credentials.
I
I am. Dr. Smith, please.
Really, madam?
What can I do for you, sir?
I'm Security Officer Bollocks of the Galaxy Law Enforcement Agency. I'm from the planet Toron, our base headquarters. My identification.
Just a moment, sir. Yes, it seems to be in order.
I also can't help but smile a bit early on as Smith is being so dismissive of
Ohan
Ohan.
reputation is respected throughout the whole galaxy.
Yes, I'm sure it is.
I detect a note of cynicism.
It's all classic Smith. You also have to give it to him as he was right. Ohan was not this lovable rogue. As we would see later in the episode, he was a dangerous criminal capable of real violence. Usually, it's Smith who opens up to aliens hoping to exchange his trust for what he really wants, riches or a passage back to Earth, while the Robinsons remain skeptical. This time, it is Smith who was right, while the Robinsons were somewhat fooled by Ohan's charm. Of course, Smith's capacity for treachery is equal to that of Ohan's, and this makes for an exciting confrontation. Smith betraying Ohan, who shows up swinging a club. Once again, this episode is a bit more dark and dangerous than many others. Additionally, I always enjoy watching the truly greedy and manipulative Smith come out. And we have some of that here as we see him grow impatient with the voice while trying to understand what the ring does.
I hoped you had changed your mind.
Just answer my question.
Very well, but it is required that I give you this warning. Use what you shall receive with wisdom. Do not let greed be your master.
Spare me the lecture. Get to the point.
As you wish. Take a step.
Best of all, we're treated to something more rare than platinum, a remorseful Smith. In spite of all the times he has been banished from the camp, or somehow found himself in a difficult position, I believe this is the only time when we see Smith this disheveled. The mussed-up hair and even a bit unshaven. And it works. He really looks like a broken man, and in spite of being Smith, it's hard not to feel sorry for him. Of course, it's a further testament to Jonathan's skill as an actor to have us feel compassion for this devious, if not murderous, character, and he does so wonderfully. It may be one of the most tender moments of the entire series when we see him express his heartfelt regrets to Penny, leaving her with a gentle kiss on the cheek. This, of course, is followed by Smith pleading with the voice, not for himself, but for Penny. It is these moments of redemption that do allow us to love the Smith character. That said, how can we not smile at the final scene as Smith and the women are walking back to the ship? A repentant Smith has just promised to turn over a new leaf, and yet his attention is taken by a platinum flower. He picks it up and proclaims,
Someone might as well have it. And it might as well be me.
It's the perfect ending, one that lets us know that the old Smith is back already. This was the kind of a sitcom-y, everyone feel good, tie it all up, happy ending that I tend to dislike, and yet in this instance, it seems to fit in quite well. One last thing about the Smith character, and it is the clothes that Penny gave to Ohan. During Ghost in Space, Maureen was creating new fatigues for everyone, including Smith. Jonathan very much disliked this new light-colored outfit. A darker color top did a better job of hiding the brace he sometimes wore for his back, as well as the shoulder pads he was at least rumored to be wearing. He also felt that the darker color better fit his character and that he simply looked better in those darker colors. So I guess giving the outfit that Jonathan disliked to Ohan was a way to somehow make that outfit disappear. A couple of other last thoughts about All That Glitters. One is taking a moment to consider what Angela must have had to go through to become the Platinum Penny, with all of that silver grease paint applied to every part of her face right up to the edge of her eyelids. And as an effect of sorts, it does look great. Also, as noted previously, production of the series during the first season was perennially falling behind schedule. Once before, trying to get ahead of the curve, the actors and the production team all took on the very large challenge of producing 2 episodes at once, juggling everything from the actors to the equipment to the sets. The first time this was done, it involved War of the Robots and The Magic Mirror. Now we have the second instance with All That Glitters in our next episode, The Lost Civilization. To pull this off, of course, each episode had to focus on different cast members. Here, the break between the cast was very clear, with the men off on a mission while the women stayed back at the ship. That's great as it led to different kinds of stories, at least in the case of the women in charge of the campsite. I will have to say, though, that it must have required considerably more creativity and juggling to do this in the prior instance, as the line of distinction across the cast between the 2 episodes was much less definitive. In Mirror, yes, Penny spent quite a bit of time in the mirror dimension, but there was still a lot going on for everyone else in the cast back at the Jupiter, except for Will and the robot. Likewise in War of the Robots, except for Penny, we once again saw a lot going on with all of the rest of the cast back at the ship. Certainly, this must have heightened the complexity of producing 2 episodes at the same time. Finally, there are 2 small bloopers that are worth calling out. The first involves Smith as he's coming out of the Jupiter just as the women are marveling at the platinum flower. Smith steps out of the Jupiter and is, of course, already wearing the ring around his neck, and this ring had lights. The power cable for those lights ran down the leg of Jonathan's pants. As he walks out of the ship, we can see that cable dragging along behind him. I imagine Maureen was supposed to more fully block our view of the ramp, but there it is. That said, anyone watching on broadcast TV on their 19-inch black and white set with rabbit ears back in the 60s certainly missed it. Now, with tremendously sized big screen TVs and high-def Blu-rays, and guys like me who have watched these shows very many times and overanalyze it all, it obviously becomes a bit more apparent. The second blooper comes as Maureen shoots her laser at the 2 approaching animals. Her first shot hits the animal on the left, and her second shot hits the animal on the right. However, when we see the animals react, it's always and only the animal on the right acting as though he's hit. That's the way the laser beam was to be drawn in by the special effects team, but unfortunately they directed the first laser to the animal on the left. So here, let me leave it to the voice of the ring to offer some words to live by.
Foolish, foolish man. You had everything necessary for happiness, and you gave it all up for what? A cold, unfeeling metal.
I know I deserve to be punished.
So how to grade and rank this episode? I think how much someone enjoys All That Glitters comes down to how good you are at not pondering questions such as, why do some things turn to platinum while others do not? Happily, I am pretty good at that, good enough to give Glitters the A- that it deserves. The threat of Ohan, Maureen taking command, Penny being Penny, and Smith, well, being Smith. It's all predicated on a great moral theme, one that has been told and retold, and I quite enjoy this version of it. I rank All That Glitters a solid 23rd for the very strong first season and 39th for the series, comfortably placing it among the top half of all episodes. If you would like to see the full Lost in Space series, at the time of this recording, it presently airs for free on MeTV. That said, you can still find the full series on DVD at Walmart for a very reasonable price. Better still, pick up Lost in Space on Blu-ray, On that set, there are some wonderful extras, including commentary by the cast. Like I said, I'm a fan, so for me, the Blu-ray is a must-have. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on All That Glitters. One of the things I enjoy most about sharing reviews like this is how different fans perceive each episode quite differently, and I invite you to leave your own perspectives below in the comments. Most of all, I hope you will come back to join me when I review our next episode, The Lost Civilization. This is an episode that I imagine most Lost in Space fans rank rather lowly. While that does include me, I do think this episode may be a bit better than its reputation, and I look forward to sharing my perspectives on it. Once again, I recommend subscribing so that you don't miss each new installment. Thanks for watching.